This is Aloy in a nutshell, being lobotomized by a leaf. That's it. That's all you need to know. Like, what more can I say? Leaf lobotomy. Aloy.
Let me ask you a question. Do you own Aloy? Sorry, let me try that again. Do you own Aloy? Okay, no, I can't do this.
Okay. Let's try this again.
So, how many of you out there have played this game long enough to own Aloy? For the uninitiated, Aloy came out during the release of patch 2.0 for PlayStation players and 2.1 for everyone else to celebrate a collaboration between Sony and Hoyoverse, at the time MiHoYo. Now this was a really big deal at the time, as this was the first and, at the time of this video, only collab character Genshin has ever received, and it was one of the biggest console companies out there, Sony. On top of that, the character was generally well liked and popular. Personally, I was hyped. I mean, a character joining Genshin from a game I like for free? It was a dream come true. A free 5-star character. Well, that's what a lot of people thought at the time, but over time, she was basically forgotten. Not just by the player base, but Hoyoverse as well. She's been all but forgotten by most of the community, and with the release of Honkai Star Rail's first free 5-star, Dr. Ratio, it seems like she's been coming back into people's minds. Mostly for the worst. This all got me thinking though. Was she really as bad as people remembered? Was she so truly unworthy of being remembered by anyone? Spoilers, yes. But we'll get there. First, I want to do my usual breakdown of her skills and constellations? Whatever, let's just get started. Aloy is a bow user that functions with some similarities to Yoimiya, mainly in the fact that they are normal attackers that rely on an infusion. That being said, her normal attack itself is nothing special. The ratio isn't terrible or anything, but nothing standout. Her skill, on the other hand, which is the source of her infusion, throws a grenade that deals serviceable cryo damage, and scatters around some additional bombs that explode when touched by enemies. When these activate, Aloy gets a stack of coil, which increases her normal attack damage, and at 4 stacks, that is when Aloy will get her cryo infusion. Now, there's a problem with this, and you may have already noticed it, and it's this line right here. There is a very small cooldown on her ability to gain stacks. Why is this so bad? It means that there is now a fail state built into her infusion skill. What I mean by that is that when you activate your skill, there's a chance that the bombs all go off at the same time because of the scatter of the bombs, bad enemy placement, or say you were using Kazuha to help group them up. You just don't get the infusion. This is it. This is the thing that breaks her. An infusion character that just can't infuse properly. I only just started reading her skills and I'm already losing my cool. This does not bode well. Anyway, her burst. Her burst fires an arrow of cryo that explodes for a decent amount of cryo damage. That's it. Nothing fancy. No BS. Just damage. It's good. Like, actually not bad at all. Nothing to really say other than the damage is good. Next up are her passives, which actually look pretty promising at first. Her first passive, when Aloy gains a coil stack, she gains 16% attack, and nearby allies gain half that amount for 10 seconds. Isn't too bad actually. It's simple, repeatable, and potentially infinitely maintainable. That is, of course, if it wasn't for the fact her skill has a 20-second cooldown for some reason. Never mind. Her second passive gives her a growing cryo damage buff over the course of 10 seconds after gaining her infusion. Again, seems pretty promising, until you realize that the buff falls off at the same time that the infusion does, and you don't actually get that 35% bonus damage for most of the infusion. What's the point? Why is it like this? Much like the infusion itself, this feels like it has a fail state. You just don't get the full value from it. Was it on purpose? Why? Why is it like this? Okay, I'm fine. Look, let's just look at our constellations. Now, I'll be honest, I'm playing this up a bit because I obviously knew this already going into this video. But this was my honest reaction when I saw it at first. Why? Aloy as a character is literally incomplete, and I can't even begin to fathom why. Let's just move on to her stupid weapon and her stupid artifacts. So for weapon, I did the unthinkable, and I actually pulled specifically for Yoimiya's weapon, just for Aloy.
Oh my god. Purple bow! Purple bow! Oh my god.
Just to see if I could make something out of her. This would prove to be my undoing. For those who want to put themselves through this for whatever reason, there are other weapons like Rust or Hamayumi, or the generic Battle Pass weapon, the Viridescent Hunt, are all fairly serviceable as generic good bows. For builds, I bounced between a few. Firstly was the obvious Freeze build, using a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer focusing on as much crit damage as I could eke out. This is probably her most viable build, since Freeze is just kind of good on its own. It may not boast as big numbers as the other builds potentially, but it's safe. And most importantly, consistent. Well, mostly anyway. Next, I did try a 2-piece Blizzard Strayer, alongside a 2-piece attack percent set, and tried to do some melts. The damage here was potentially solid, and could even produce a pretty convincing one-shot with the right setup. But the gameplay on this was just bad. More on that later. Finally, I tried a physical build, because I just got fed up that her infusion wasn't activating, and I figured, well, she's got enough cryo bonus from her ascensions and passives, that I could let that do the heavy lifting for me and just do normal attacks with or without the infusion. These builds all have their own issues, but let's just go over them one at a time. Now, what does an Aloy team even look like? Well, let's start with the obvious one, Freeze. Freeze is generally a safe option, and has a few ways of building it. The core I ended up settling on was Aloy, Benny, and Shinshou. The last slot changing between Shenhe, Kazuha, and Zhongli, depending on what I was doing. Though, worth noting that Kazuha did give me the best chance to get Aloy's infusion when I wanted it, even if it still wasn't completely consistent. Goal for this team was to get Aloy's infusion active, obviously, buff her with Bennett, and then snapshot that same buff on Shinshou, and then use Aloy's burst and normal attacks to keep enemies frozen while she just pelts them with normal attacks. This was the team I primarily did my Abyss testing with, since it was the safest option. However, getting her infusion was still a nightmare, and given that the Abyss is very boss heavy right now, Freeze just didn't end up feeling that good on most of the floor 12 chambers. But at least it felt okay on the non-boss ones. Next up on the menu was Melt Aloy, which ran Bennett and Kazuha as the core again, this time using Kazuha for his burst to get a consistent off-field pyro application going. For the last slot, it was a similar story as last time. Zhongli for a generic buff and defenses, Shenhe for a very big cryo-specific buff, and Zhongling for even more pyro application as well as the double pyro bonus. Ultimately, I preferred Zhongli again because shields are good, and it made it at least possible to get some value when the infusion inevitably failed, unlike Shenhe. Zhongling always does decent damage, but then it'd just be Zhongling carrying Aloy instead of Aloy doing, well, anything. Worth noting that my final Abyss test I did end up going with Shenhe just to try to eke out some nice looking numbers, but it was a miserable experience. It was... oh my god, it was so bad. Anyway, finally was Physical Aloy. With this, I finally had a solution to her infusion not going off. And even if it did, she generated her own cryo damage bonus, so it'd still be doing okay damage. With Zhongli for his Omni damage buff, Mika for attack speed and physical damage, and finally Raiden Shogun for easy access to superconducts, it seemed like we were primed to go. Yeah, this was terrible, but not really surprising, right? We're kind of going against everything she's supposed to be doing. Honestly, I'd rather just try chart shots on her. Which I did too on stream, actually. I actually did try that, and it wasn't good either, but it was better than whatever the hell this was. After all this, using crowns, pulling for a 5-star synergistic weapon, using my best characters, Aloy felt like garbage. But I felt bad. I wanted to like her. Looking at all the individual pieces, it felt like she could have been great. I've been pretty negative about her, but honestly, if she didn't have the internal cooldown for her infusion, her cryo buff didn't take 10 seconds to ramp up, or God forbid she actually had constellations, we could have a real character here. Regardless of all that though, I tried my best, and I was able to at least clear the abyss with her, even if it was a train wreck along the way. Maybe one day Hoya will revisit Aloy and actually finish her, but somehow I doubt it. Anyway, here's the best of those runs. Cheers. So after all that, was Aloy salvageable? No. She may in fact be the worst character in the game to date. Don't get me wrong, I love a challenge. And I've had a lot of success with characters that are off meta and even downright bad in the eyes of the community. But Aloy doesn't even compare to them. It's not that she's bad. she's incomplete. She's not finished. To all the Aloy mains out there, I salute you. I respect you. You have more patience than myself, and I pray that one day that patience pays out and Hoyo shows even half the love than those who have truly mained her since her release. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you for the 500 subscribers. It may be small to some, but for me, that's a massive amount and way more than I ever thought I'd get. So, thank you. So much. And I just hope I can keep meeting your guys' standards. For those who are new, please like and subscribe, if you think I deserve it, of course. And don't be afraid to check out our Discord sometime. Links down in the description. Anyway, that's all from me. Cheers.